on, yeah. Never felt that, come on, yeah. When I never felt that, come on, yeah. You gotta get up.
Yeah, it would be fun, but we can't watch the whole thing. We need to get on with section 3. Reforestation. Trees are being cut down without any plan. Taboo, no-take zones. So when we're talking about overfishing, which we've done pretty much everywhere on the planet, we're creating zones where you can't fish. Terracing agriculture. That's going to help reduce irrigation runoff and erosion. Diversified agriculture. What has been going on there is what's known as monoculture. Basically, you're growing only one item, sugar, for instance. These are brought in by the colonizing countries, and they don't care whether you have a diversified economy or using environmentally friendly farming techniques. Mother countries only wanted 2 things from their colonies, and you're supposed to remember what those are. Companies are coming in and they're just purchasing things. So we're buying it instead of bringing in an army. This is known as neocolonialism. It's actually cheaper to pull it off without an army. Fresh water. You have to have fresh water to survive. A lack of clean drinking water is going to keep the standard of living low. It's also going to pose barriers to economic development. Climate change, rising sea levels. We'll take a look that some of these islands are literally going to be underwater. Problems. If we take a look from 2010 to 2030 and the growth of the population, Melanesia is going to need 60% more fish to feed that population. I want you to understand this. This is what they're getting. Right now they are making $5.4 billion out of the goods and services that come from their environment. This is what they're actually worth. You can see right now they're not getting a fair deal. Human impact. Yes, we actually tested some nuclear weapons and blew up some islands in the 40s and 50s.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. Here again is an excellent photographic portrayal of the boiling, foaming wall of water engulfing the ships in the foreground. This highly lethal spray was intensely radioactive.
Yeah, there can't possibly be anything that could go wrong with that. Climate change. El Nino, we've talked about before, so we get more El Nino weather patterns, and El Nino causes both droughts and powerful storms. Island flooding. Let's look at some of the islands that may not be islands for that much longer.
It's not about when the entire islands are underwater. It's well before that it's going to be the crisis. And it's already happening. What we are facing at the moment is severe flooding. It's gone into the freshwater ponds, and that's how people get their drinking water.
Have you spoken to people in the scientific community that have given you some sort of a time frame?
Given the scenarios and the projections put forward by the science, our islands will be underwater. And so the question is, what do we do about it? We have adopted a policy of migration with dignity. We bought a piece of land in Fiji so that if our people choose to migrate today, they can do it.
Throughout Palau, we have sea level rise coming into the farmlands, coming into the homes.
This is unbelievable. When was this an intact island with homes on it? How long ago?
12 years ago, when you came, there were people living here. So within the 12-year period, this is the result. It's just a small picture of one place. The small island nations who contribute the least to the causes of climate change are actually going to feel the worst impacts, the worst scenarios because of global warming.
So that's not pleasant if that's your home. It's not pleasant if it's not your home. Rising tide contaminates freshwater sources. That's one of the things that they talked about. You cannot drink salt water. As the ocean warms, you get more algae. We've looked at this before. Algae chokes off the other life forms at the bottom of the food chain, and then it works its way up. You can see that used to be coral reef.
The extremely remote location of this rainforest used to offer its protection, but recently that's changed. The forests around Pomea are disappearing fast, as they have been right around Papua New Guinea. It has more of Asia-Pacific's remaining rainforest than any other country, but Special Agricultural Business Leases, or SABLs, threaten them. They were supposed to be issued to agricultural companies to clear land they intended to farm on. But most SABLs, which now cover more than 10% of Papua New Guinea's entire landmass, were issued often corruptly to logging companies. The timber is processed in China and sold on around the world as kitchen flooring.
You're supposed to avoid emotion in reports like this, but this scene is just profoundly depressing. When I first saw it, it took my breath away. I mean, just look at it. This is a landscape that's been scarred.
Logging companies say they've brought jobs, services and roads to poor parts of Papua New Guinea and paid landowners. But this satellite imagery, with pictures taken in 2013 and again this year, shows in just one area the extent of what's been lost.
That's depressing. Easter Island, there are no trees when the Europeans arrived. We're going to talk about a guy by the name of Jared Diamond next year, but he wrote a book that I'm sure you're not going to want to read entitled Collapse, where he looks at past societies and how they collapsed and compares them to where we're at today. And again, also depressing. Okay, we've promised. We've stopped exploding nuclear bombs on them. We gave them $90 million to decontaminate. Yes, Bikini Atoll, that is where the term bikini comes from. And $45 million to provide grants to radiation victims. That is basically they're managing like tuna populations. You have to file a catch report and maintain logbooks. Working with local people, companies, we want to reduce the negative effects of sugarcane production on coral reefs primarily. And that brings us to the end of another section.
You gotta go with me.